You've tried everything, haven't you? Meditation at sunrise, affirmations in the mirror, vision boards, shadow work, energy healing, therapy, new habits, new cities, new relationships. And still, the same reality keeps pulling you back like an undertow, dragging you into the same dark water. You're tired. Not the kind of tired sleep fixes, the kind that sits in your bones because you've been fighting the same invisible current for years and nothing, absolutely nothing, sticks. Maybe you wake up at 3:33 a.m. for no reason, stare at the ceiling, and feel like you're watching your life from outside yourself. Or you catch your reflection in a random window, and for a split second don't recognize the person looking back. Your conversations feel scripted, like you've said these exact words in this exact tone 1,000 times before. Different people, same movie. Here's what nobody's telling you. You're not stuck in bad habits or limiting beliefs or low vibration. You're trapped in an observer loop, a quantum cycle where your own consciousness has become the prison, and every attempt to escape just builds thicker walls. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how I broke my own loop after 5 years of repeating the same year in different packaging. And listen, you being here right now, that's not the algorithm, that's quantum resonance. Your frequency called this video into your reality because some part of your consciousness is ready to see what it's been doing to itself. Here's the thing. Only about 3 to 5% of people have what I call active observer sensitivity. That's the ability to notice you're stuck before the loop completely closes. Most humans live on autopilot, never questioning why the same patterns keep showing up. But you've got the gene of the perpetual questioner. You feel the repetition even when you can't name it. That makes you different, but it also makes you vulnerable to a specific kind of trap that people in autopilot never experience. And what I'm about to share, I learned this the hardest way possible. You know what's wild? I spent 3 years jumping from relationship to relationship, convinced each new person was going to be different. Act 1, intense chemistry, like we'd known each other forever. Act 2, same argument about emotional availability, just different words. Act 3, tearful reconciliation where we'd promised to work on it, then boom, repeat. Different faces, same script. It wasn't until relationship number 4 that I caught myself mid-fight thinking, wait, I've said these exact words before. That's when I realized I wasn't dating different people. I was stuck in an observer loop and my consciousness kept collapsing the same damn reality no matter who was standing across from me. Think of it like a vinyl record with a scratch in it. You can lift the needle, spin the turntable faster, even flip the record over. But the moment you place that needle down, it's going to fall right back into that same groove. Your attention is the needle, and the loop is that worn-out track carved into the quantum field. Here's the thing nobody tells you. It's not about bad energy or some cosmic punishment for past life mistakes. It's about coherence. Your observer state creating such a strong pattern that it literally reshapes which possibilities collapse into your experience. The universe isn't testing you. Your consciousness is just playing the only song it knows how to play. And here's where it gets really trippy. You start noticing the signs. You'll see 11:11 on every clock you glance at for weeks. That song you associate with your ex? It'll play in 3 different coffee shops in one day. You'll meet someone new and halfway through the conversation, get hit with this overwhelming déjà vu, like you're watching a movie you've already seen. These aren't coincidences or angel numbers or synchronicities trying to guide you. They're markers, breadcrumbs your consciousness leaves to show you the loop is active. Your awareness is so coherently focused on a specific pattern that reality keeps serving up the same vibrational frequency in different packaging. But here's the part that'll mess with your head. The harder you try to consciously escape the loop, the stronger it gets. I remember when I first understood this, I went all in. Affirmations every morning, vision boards, cutting cords, the whole spiritual toolkit. And you know what happened? The loop intensified. New relationship, same 3 acts, except faster this time. Because resistance is just another form of focused observation. When you're desperately trying not to repeat a pattern, you're still observing that pattern with intense coherence. It's like telling yourself, don't think about pink elephants. Guess what you're thinking about now? Your quantum observer doesn't understand negation. It only understands where you're placing your attention. The real mind bender is this. Every self-help strategy, Every manifestation technique, every attempt to raise your vibration, can actually reinforce the loop if you're approaching it from observation-based force rather than observer state shift. You're not stuck because you're doing something wrong. You're stuck because the very act of monitoring whether you're still stuck keeps you coherently locked into the pattern. I spent months journaling about my progress, tracking my emotional states, analyzing every interaction for signs of growth. All that observation, it was the loop feeding on itself, getting denser, more solid, more real. And what I'm about to show you next? Well, let me just say the way out isn't what anyone's telling you on social media. Let me take you back to when I was 32, sitting in my fourth dream job in 8 years. Different company, different title, fancier office, but that same suffocating feeling in my chest every Sunday night. I'd climbed the ladder, negotiated better pay, even switched industries thinking that was the problem. But there I was again, 6 months in, staring at my computer screen thinking, this isn't it either. The projects were different, the people were different, but the frustration, identical. The glass ceiling I kept hitting, same height every single time. That's when it hit me like a freight train. I wasn't stuck in bad companies. I was the denominator common to every equation that wasn't adding up. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. Nothing special about it. I was lying in bed scrolling through LinkedIn, looking at job postings like I'd done 100 times before, when this thought just emerged from somewhere deeper than my mind. What if the pattern isn't out there? What if I'm carrying the loop with me everywhere I go? I actually sat up in bed, heart racing, because I could suddenly see it. Every resignation letter, every excited first day, every gradual disillusionment. It was all the same frequency playing on repeat. My consciousness had such coherent expectations about how work should feel that I kept collapsing the same reality, just with different company logos on the door. So I did what any spiritually wired person would do. I doubled down on the practices. Wake up at 5 a.m. for meditation. Affirmations in the mirror. Gratitude journal. I even hired a manifestation coach who had me visualizing my aligned career for 20 minutes every morning. And you know what happened? 3 months later, I got headhunted for what looked like the perfect position. Better title, better pay, fully remote, values-aligned company. I was convinced I'd finally shifted my vibration, broken the pattern, done the work. Started the job on a Monday. By Friday, that familiar tightness was back in my chest. Same loop. Shinier packaging. I'd intensified my observation of the problem, which just made the quantum field collapse an even more coherent version of what I was trying to escape. Here's where it gets interesting, and this part I couldn't have planned if I tried. 2 weeks into that perfect job, I got into a minor car accident. Nothing serious, just a fender bender, but my phone got destroyed and my laptop cracked. Insurance stuff meant I was off the grid for 3 full days. No phone, no computer, no way to check in with work or scroll through my usual escape hatches. Just me, some old paperback books I hadn't touched in years, and this deafening silence I hadn't experienced since I couldn't even remember. No podcasts while cooking, no Netflix before bed. Just silence. And in that silence, something started to shift that I didn't have words for yet. On day 2 of my accidental digital detox, I was sitting on my porch drinking coffee, really drinking it, not scrolling while sipping, when I caught myself doing something bizarre. I was running a mental checklist. Am I present right now? Is this mindfulness? Should I be feeling different? Is the pattern breaking yet? And right there, in that moment of catching myself, I saw the whole game. I wasn't trying to change. I was performing change while obsessively observing whether the performance was working. It's like trying to fall asleep by constantly checking if you're asleep yet. Every meditation session, I'd been the observer watching myself meditate, grading my progress, scanning for signs of transformation. I was filming myself trying to be spontaneous, which kills the very spontaneity I was reaching for. The loop wasn't in my job or my thoughts or even my patterns. It was in the quality of my observation itself. And what I discovered next about how observation actually works. Man, this is where everything you think you know starts to unravel. Here's what's going to blow your mind. It's not your thoughts creating the loop. It's not your emotions either, or even your vibration in the way most teachers talk about it. I spent years trying to control my thinking, police my feelings, raise my frequency, and all of that just kept me spinning in the same cycle. Because the real mechanism is something way more subtle that nobody's talking about. It's not what you're observing, it's how you're observing. It's the relationship between your consciousness and the quantum field, not the content of your awareness. Think of it like this. Two people can look at the same sunset, but one sees it through anxiety about tomorrow and the other through pure presence. Same sunset, completely different collapse of reality afterward. Let me give you an analogy that actually makes sense. Imagine you're standing in a bathroom with a steamy mirror after a hot shower. Most spiritual teaching tells you to clean the mirror, change your thoughts, clear your limiting beliefs, wipe away the fog. And sure, you can scrub that glass all day long. But what actually clears the mirror? Changing the temperature of the room. When you shift the quality of your observation, not what you observe, but the state from which you're observing, the fog dissolves on its own. You're not fighting with the condensation. You're altering the atmospheric conditions. That's the difference between forcing change and allowing coherence to naturally reorganize itself. Now, here's where it gets practical. There are 3 types of observation that create loops, and I guarantee you're stuck in at least one of them right now. First, anxious observation. This is when you're constantly checking if things have changed yet, like taking your temperature every 5 minutes when you have a fever. Is my bank account different? Did that person text back? Am I happier today? Every check-in is an act of coherent observation that collapses the same pattern because you're measuring from the same frequency. Second, nostalgic observation. This is living with one eye in the rearview mirror, comparing your present to some idealized past or, even worse, to who you used to be before the trauma or the breakup or the failure. You're trying to drive forward while steering based on where you've already been. The third type is what I call projective observation, and this one's sneaky because it masquerades as manifestation. You're living in the future that should be happening by now. The relationship you should have, the business that should have taken off, the healing that should be complete. Every time you observe your present reality through the lens of the absent future, you create a quantum split where you're coherently focused on the gap, not the possibility. It's like programming a GPS for the wrong destination and then getting frustrated that the roads aren't taking you where you want to go. Your consciousness keeps navigating toward what you're observing most coherently, and if that's the absence of what you want, guess what keeps showing up? Let me tell you about someone I know who perfectly illustrates this. She wanted a healthy relationship so badly, did all the healing work, cleared the daddy issues, set boundaries, raised her standards. But every single day her dominant observation was, when is it gonna happen? Where is he? Why isn't he here yet? That when was the loop. Not her worthiness, not her vibration, not her readiness. The quality of her observation was future absence, and that's exactly what the quantum field kept delivering. More absence, more waiting, more when. She wasn't observing from the relationship. She was observing the lack of it with a laser-focused coherence. And until that observation quality shifted, not the content, the quality, the loop kept playing the same song. Now what I'm about to show you are the signs that this whole mechanism is starting to dissolve. And I'm warning you, they're gonna feel wrong at first. Okay, this is gonna sound completely backwards, but stay with me. When the observer loop starts breaking, the first sign isn't some magical manifestation or sudden clarity. It's loss of interest. You're gonna stop caring about things you spent years convinced you wanted. That dream job suddenly feels neutral. That specific relationship outcome you've been trying to manifest, you'll catch yourself forgetting to visualize it. And here's the kicker. This isn't depression or giving up. It's recalibration. Your consciousness is loosening its coherent grip on specific outcomes, which creates space for the quantum field to deliver something your limited observation couldn't have collapsed. Most people panic here and try to get their motivation back, which just restarts the loop. The second marker is even weirder. You're gonna hit a period of voidness, almost like boredom, where nothing feels exciting or urgent. I'm talking about waking up and not having that familiar anxiety pushing you forward, but also not having some blissed-out replacement emotion. Just neutral, empty. And this freaks people out because we've been conditioned to think transformation should feel like fireworks and epiphanies. But dissolution feels more like watching paint dry. Your nervous system is literally rewiring its relationship to observation, and that requires a fallow period where the old patterns go dormant before new ones emerge. If you try to fill this void with action or healing practices, you abort the process right when it's working. Here's another one that'll trip you up. People start leaving your life, but there's no drama. No big fight, no betrayal, just a quiet fading. You'll realize you haven't talked to someone in 3 months and feel nothing about it. That's your quantum field reorganizing relational coherence. The observer loop keeps you entangled with people who match its frequency, so when the loop dissolves, those connections naturally fall away. Not because you're outgrowing them or they're toxic, but because the resonance that held it together no longer exists. And then there are the dreams. You'll start having dreams where you're watching yourself from the outside like you're the audience instead of the actor. That's your consciousness practicing observer state shift while your analytical mind is offline. But here's the marker that got me. And this one's profound. You'll have complete memory lapses about patterns that used to define you. I remember having this moment about 4 months into my shift where a friend brought up my chronic job hopping, and I literally couldn't connect to what she was talking about. Not like I'd healed from it or processed it, more like it had happened to someone else in another lifetime. The emotional charge, the story, the identity around it, just evaporated. I didn't resolve it. It dissolved, like a snake outgrowing its skin, except the snake doesn't try to molt. It just grows, and the old skin becomes irrelevant. If you catch yourself trying to turn this into a practice, I'm gonna force myself to forget my patterns. You've just created a new loop about forgetting loops. And nobody talks about the physical stuff, but your body knows before your mind does. Your sleep pattern will shift. You might need more sleep or way less or start waking up at odd hours feeling totally alert. Your appetite changes. Foods you loved suddenly don't appeal to you. You might feel cold when everyone else is warm, or hot when it's chilly. Your body's literally recalibrating its coherence with the physical environment as your observer state shifts. I had a week where I completely forgot about a financial worry that had consumed me for 3 months. Not forgot to worry about it, forgot it existed, just completely evaporated from my awareness. When I remembered it days later, there was zero emotional charge. The loop had been running that worry like a program, and when the loop dissolved, the program just stopped. What I'm about to share next is how to work with this dissolution without accidentally turning it into another thing you're doing. Here's the paradox that'll make your brain hurt. How do you break the observer loop without creating a new loop of trying to break loops? Because the moment you turn this into a method, a practice, a thing you do, you've just activated the same mechanism that created the original trap. You're back to observing yourself observing, checking if it's working, measuring progress. And boom, new loop, same mechanics. So what I'm about to share isn't something you do. It's something you allow to happen through you. Think of it as observing from your peripheral vision instead of staring directly. You know how you can see movement way better in the corner of your eye than when you look straight at it? That's the quality we're after here. I call this observing without agenda, and it's so subtle most people miss it completely. Throughout your day, just once in a while, notice that you're noticing. Not mindfulness where you focus on the present moment. That's still focused observation. I'm talking about a meta-awareness, like taking one step back from your own consciousness and becoming aware that awareness is happening. You're not trying to change anything, fix anything, or achieve some state. You're just catching yourself in the act of being conscious. It's like when you suddenly realize you've been humming a song without knowing it. That moment of recognition. That's the frequency. Let me tell you about the first time this clicked for me. I was making breakfast, nothing special, pouring coffee into my mug, and for maybe 30 seconds I had this bizarre sensation of watching myself pour the coffee while simultaneously being the one pouring. Not dissociation, more like double exposure. I was present and aware of being present, but without any effort or intention. And here's what's wild. The rest of that day felt different. Lighter, like the quantum field had more room to move because I wasn't gripping it so tightly with my usual anxious observation. That 30-second moment of meta-presence shifted my entire coherence pattern for hours. I didn't try to repeat it, didn't turn it into morning coffee awareness practice, I just let it be what it was. The difference between this and traditional mindfulness is crucial, so listen close. Mindfulness says, be here now, focus on your breath, return to the present moment. That's still agenda-based observation. You're trying to achieve presence, which means you're observing yourself not being present, which reinforces the gap. What I'm pointing to is more like floating. You know when you're swimming and you're exhausted from fighting the current and then you just stop? You flip onto your back, spread your arms, and let the water hold you. That's when the current actually moves you to calmer water. This is active surrender, not passive giving up. You're not doing nothing. You're releasing the doing that's been keeping you locked in place. Here's something concrete you can work with for the next 7 days. Once a day, doesn't matter when, just pause whatever you're doing. Could be washing dishes, sitting in traffic, scrolling your phone. Doesn't matter. Pause and ask yourself, who's observing this moment right now? Don't answer it. Don't analyze it. Don't turn it into a philosophical inquiry. Just feel the question land in your consciousness and notice what happens. There's a gap that opens up, a tiny spaciousness between you and your experience, and in that gap, the observer loop loses its coherence for a split second. Do this once a day. Same question, no expectations. You're not trying to break anything or achieve anything. You're just introducing a gentle disruption to your usual observation pattern. And here's what most people never realize about how this affects everyone around you. Now here's something they don't tell you in the personal development world. When you break your observer loop, you're not just changing your individual reality, you're affecting the entire quantum field around you. This isn't some woo-woo send good vibes thing. It's actual mechanics. Think of it like this. Every person stuck in a loop is creating a gravitational pull in the collective consciousness, a dense point of coherent repetition. When you dissolve your loop, you're removing that density, which creates space and possibility for everyone entangled in similar frequencies. There's this concept called morphic resonance. Basically, when one person figures out how to do something, it becomes easier for others to do it too. But it works in reverse as well. I watched this happen in real time about 3 months after my own shift. I hadn't talked to anyone about what I was going through, wasn't posting about it, wasn't teaching it, just living it quietly. And within that 3-month window, 5 people in my close circle had spontaneous breakthroughs. One friend finally left the relationship she'd been stuck in for years, just woke up one day and knew it was over. No drama. Another suddenly pivoted careers after a decade of complaining about the same job. My sister called me out of nowhere saying she'd stopped her anxiety medication because the anxiety just wasn't there anymore. None of them knew what was shifting in me, but the field knew. When you change your observer coherence, you create ripples that reach shores you'll never see. Think of dropping a stone in a lake. You see the initial splash, maybe the first few rings spreading out, but you don't see the tiny waves that eventually reach the far edge of the water. Your consciousness shift is that stone. You're creating disturbances in the quantum field that propagate outward in ways your linear mind can't track or measure. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to do anything about it. You're not responsible for saving anyone or being some kind of enlightened guru. You just become a point of coherence. Stable, clear, not looping. And that stability naturally influences the field around you. It's not about raising the vibration of the planet through effort. It's about being less dense so others have more room to move. And here's something I've noticed about this specific moment we're living in. Right now, in this timeline, there's what I can only describe as increased quantum elasticity. The field is more malleable than it's been in decades, maybe longer. Windows that used to take years of practice to open are cracking with months of subtle shifts. Patterns that were generational are dissolving in single lifetimes. I don't know if it's planetary alignment, collective consciousness evolution, or just where we are in some larger cosmic cycle, but I know the people who are sensitive to this can feel it. Breaking your observer loop right now doesn't just free you. It anchors a new possibility structure in the collective field that makes it easier for the next person, and the next, and the next. So when you do this work, and I'm calling it work even though it's really unwork, you're not just healing yourself. You're participating in a collective recalibration that's way bigger than your personal story. Every time you catch yourself observing without agenda, every moment you exist outside the loop, you're sending a signal into the field. This pattern doesn't have to be permanent. This cycle can end. This coherence can shift. And someone somewhere, tangled in their own version of your old loop, will feel that signal at a level deeper than thought and take their first breath of freedom without knowing why. That's the real transmission. Not the words, not the teaching, but the quality of your presence in the quantum field itself. Listen, you didn't land on this video by accident. The observer loop isn't punishment. It's an evolutionary invitation, a quantum nudge asking you to see what you've been doing to yourself. And here's the final truth that'll set you free. The loop doesn't break when you try harder to break it. It dissolves the moment you stop and ask, who's the one trying to break it? That shift in observation, from doer to witness, that's where coherence collapses into something new. Think of it like a door you've been pushing for years, convinced it's locked. Bruised shoulders, exhausted arms, certain the universe is keeping you out. But the door was never locked. You were just pushing from the wrong side. The moment you step back and observe the situation instead of forcing it, the door swings open effortlessly. It was always open. You were just too focused on the struggle to notice. And if you made it this far in the video, your frequency is already shifting. Don't wait for fireworks or dramatic signs. Quantum transformation is silent, like snow falling at night. Something in your consciousness has already loosened its grip. Trust that. But here's what nobody prepared me for. What happens after the loop breaks? What comes next when you're no longer trapped? That's what I'm revealing in the next video. And it's going to flip everything you think you know about reality. Drop a comment below and just write, Observer Awakened. This creates a resonance field for everyone who understood. And if you've experienced any of these signs, share your story. Your words might be the trigger that breaks someone else's loop. Hit that like button to amplify this work, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Not just for updates, but to align your frequency with content that accelerates loop dissolution. The algorithm responds to coherence. Next video. If you're seeing this, you've just activated the quantum nature within. When your loop breaks, you don't change realities. You realize you've always existed in multiple realities simultaneously. I'll show you how to navigate your first conscious timeline jump without creating new loops of confusion. See you there.